Bingo. Okay, if anybody's in the chat, please check the sound. Make sure you're here. We are six 6 minutes behind in the hearing, which will be caught up really quick. This is all my fault.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Beverly Cannone, the Justice of the Superior Court, now holding in Dedham within and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is in session. Please be seated.
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
All right. Good morning again, counsel. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. I have to ask you those same three questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we were here yesterday? Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left here yesterday? No. Everyone said no or should be. Thank you very much. Will you bring Mr. Whitley back in, please? Ms. Yannetti, you can step up to the podium.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Sir, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. Thank you.
Can I proceed?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley, yesterday you testified that when Karen Reed was brought to the hospital, she didn't want to get into a hospital Johnny and she didn't want to give a urine sample. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
It was clear to you that her reluctance to cooperate at that time was because she very much wanted to check on John's progress and status at the hospital, correct?
No, I don't believe that to be the case.
Well, you testified before the grand jury regarding this matter 3 years ago, didn't you?
I don't believe I said that she was
I
reluctant.
didn't ask you that question. You testified before the grand jury 3 years ago, didn't you?
I testified before the grand jury 3 years ago.
You were under oath then, as you're under oath today, correct?
Correct.
You swore to tell the truth.
I am telling the truth.
You swore to tell the truth in 2022 before the grand jury, did you not?
I did.
That was less than 3 months after you brought Karen Reed to the hospital, didn't you?
Yeah.
And your memory of what happened at the hospital was very good in April of 2022, right?
As good as today.
Your memory in April of 2022 was very good, wasn't it?
It was very good as it is today.
Okay, so you want to add the as it is today, despite the fact that you weren't asked that question. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right. When questioned by Mr. Lally at the grand jury, you were asked the following question. So what, if any, interaction did you have with her, meaning Ms. Reed, at the hospital once you were there? You remember that question, right?
I do.
And your answer was, so we, after that, I helped escort her down to, they call it the psych hallway, where they have rooms set up for psychiatric patients for their evaluation. And then she was unhappy that she wasn't able to see him, meaning John. And she kept trying to. She didn't want to get into a hospital Johnny. She didn't want to, I believe, give a urine sample. She was not, the nurses were asking her to do certain things that every patient has to do, and she was not cooperating with them. Do you remember that answer?
I do.
So 3 years ago, when you testified about this issue of giving a urine sample, you testified under oath that you believed that she didn't want to give a urine sample, correct?
Correct.
Yesterday, 3 years later, you testified with certainty that she didn't want to give them, right?
Yeah, she was giving them a hard time about having to give a urine sample.
Right. No, I'm asking you about your testimony yesterday in contrast to the grand jury, sir.
Okay.
To the extent that I ask yes or no question, I'd like yes or no answers.
So
okay?
no instructions to the witness, Mr.
Your
Yannetti.
Honor,
Ask
may
a
the witness be
question.
instructed to answer the question yes or no if it calls for a yes or no question.
So
Answer.
answer the question that's asked of you. Okay?
Okay.
So go ahead, ask a question.
You testified yesterday that she didn't want to give a urine sample without saying it was your belief that she didn't want to give one, correct?
Correct.
In any case, were you aware that when she was asked to give a urine sample, that Ms. Reed had gotten her period and did not have a tampon?
I was aware she was on her period, yes.
You're also aware that when somebody is brought to the hospital for a Section 12, they have no privacy. Isn't that right?
They have medical privacy. Either the tech or the nurse would be with the patient at all times.
Okay. With them at all times, observing them at all times,
correct?
correct?
So they wouldn't be, she wasn't in like a hallway open to the public.
Understood, sir. But she also, when I said privacy, what I was asking is, she was not allowed to go to the bathroom alone to give a urine sample, correct?
She was a psychiatric patient.
Right. So she would have to use the bathroom in front of hospital personnel or some medical personnel with people watching her while she was on her period with no tampon, correct?
I would understand that to be true.
All right. And you're aware that she did cooperate and eventually give a blood sample as well, correct?
I'm not aware of a blood sample, but urine sample, yes.
She did give the urine sample.
Correct.
All right. Now, in your testimony yesterday, you discussed the topic of your memory of what Karen Reed may have asked you about John surviving in the snow with light clothing. You remember those questions?
I remember asking about not having a jacket, correct?
Now, starting at the end of the day, when I cross-examined you yesterday, I asked you about that topic and I said to you, you mentioned something about hypothermia, that you assumed you may have been dealing with a hypothermia situation. And your answer was, well, she said that he had been out in the snow without a jacket for many hours, correct?
Correct.
But before I cross-examined you at the end of the day yesterday, you previously testified 3 times about this topic, correct?
I believe it would be the grand jury and the previous trial.
Right, and direct examination when Mr. Brennan was asking you questions before I stood up, correct?
Okay, yes.
Let's start with the first time you testified about this topic back in 2022. That was, again, less than 3 months after you had a conversation with Ms. Reed at the scene on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Her statements and questions to you at the scene were fresh in your mind in April of 2022, correct?
Correct.
In April of 2022, before the grand jury, Mr. Lally asked you, quote, what, if any, questions did she ask you regarding hypothermia? Do you remember that question?
I do.
Your answer was, she was just wondering if he could have survived outside in the cold even though he didn't have a jacket on. Do you remember giving that answer?
I do.
Nowhere in that answer in 2022, less than 3 months after these events, do you attribute the words, quote, many hours, end quote, in the snow to Ms. Reed, correct?
Yes, I was not.
I'm not asking for an explanation, sir. I'm asking for an answer.
All right, so he was answering you, Mr.
My
Yannetti.
question called for a yes or no answer. Nowhere in your answer in 2022 do you attribute the words many hours in the snow to Ms. Reed, yes or no?
No, I did not say that at that point.
Nowhere in your answer in 2022 do you testify that Ms. Reed told you he had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
She did at that.
Sir, I'm asking you about your testimony.
So let him answer the question.
Let me ask it again. Nowhere in your answer in 2022 did you testify that Ms. Reed told you he had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
In 2022, I testified that I was just told to be brief and give generalizations. She quantified many hours in the snow when we were back at the
Let me try this again, sir.
So,
because
Mr. Yannetti, you're just saying 2022. Get to a
Of
date
course,
and a
yes.
place.
April of 2022. Okay. before the grand jury, my question again, and I'm still seeking a yes or no answer from you, okay? Nowhere in your answer in April of 2022, before the grand jury, did you testify under oath that Ms. Reed told you that John had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
Not in 2022 of April, no.
Okay. The next time you testified under oath was last year in 2024, correct?
Correct.
During that testimony, Mr. Lally asked you, oh, by the way, so 2022 is no mention of many hours, right?
I did not, and I was told to be brief on the grand jury stand.
But again, no mention of
Correct.
many hours in 2022. Okay. Now, 2024, last year, Mr. Lally asked you, so firefighter Whitley, at some point, specific to your conversations with the defendant, Ms. Reed, can you describe sort of her demeanor or any observations you made in relation to that as you were speaking with her? And your answer was, yes, she was very upset. She kept asking if there was any chance. She kept asking us if we knew if the person ambulance 1 had transported was alive or dead, and we could not speak to that. She asked if somebody could be alive in the snow without a jacket for many hours, correct?
Correct.
So 2022, there was no mention of many hours. 2024, over time, now that's the first time that you mention the words many hours in your testimony regarding this case, correct?
Correct.
Right? And when you testified last year, you testified still that she was asking you a question about surviving in the snow, correct?
Correct.
So then we come to yesterday on direct examination. Do you recall that Mr. Brennan yesterday asked you, before you left, were you having any conversations with the defendant? And you answered yes. Recall that yesterday?
Is that at the hospital?
I'm asking you yesterday, do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you, before you left essentially the scene, were you having any conversations with the defendant? And your answer was yes.
You're talking about Lee, I'm just trying to make sure we're talking about the same instance. Are we talking about when we left the hospital or when we left Fairview Road?
When you were at Fairview Road, leaving Fairview Road, we're talking about the same subject of what Ms. Reed supposedly told you or asked you. Okay, Mr. Brennan went into that with you.
So on the way to, you're talking on the way to the hospital in terms of left, when we left.
Well, before you left, he meant before you left the scene.
Okay, no, I'm just trying to clarify.
Again, it's the same conversation, Mr. Whitley. I'm not
So,
trying to trick you.
Mr. Yannetti, he just asked for a point of reference. It's clear. Now go.
Understood. And Mr. Brennan said, can you share with the jury what those conversations were about? And your answer was, so we were talking, she was upset. She kept asking if there was any chance her husband could be alive, even sitting outside in the snow without any coat for many hours. Do you recall that answer that you gave yesterday on direct examination?
Yes.
And that was the first time that you mentioned that she said, supposedly, or asked supposedly, about him sitting outside in the snow, correct?
I was just using phrases generally speaking.
Not my question.
I wasn't at that point I was paraphrasing. I was not speaking verbatim to what she said.
Let's try that again. That was the first time that you mentioned that she claimed or asked that he was sitting outside, correct?
It could have been sitting, laying, being.
Let's try it a third time.
So
Was that-
just ask the question, not let's try it.
Sure.
Let's try it.
Was that the first time that you testified under oath that Ms. Reed said or asked about him sitting outside?
Are you asking me to clarify whether she used the
I'm not
word
asking you
sitting?
to clarify anything. I'm asking you whether that was the first time yesterday during direct examination that you mentioned that she asked about him sitting outside.
I'm sorry. I am very confused because I'm trying to figure out if he was being outside, sitting outside.
I'm asking you about Ms. Reed's statements, sir. That's all I've been asking you about. Her
Okay.
statements to you and your testimony about her statements to you. Was yesterday on direct examination the first time that you testified under oath that Ms. Reed mentions the words sitting outside?
I don't know.
All right.
I'm just using, she might have said laying outside, being outside, outside.
Okay, so when you testified yesterday before this jury
Yes,
that she mentioned the words sitting outside, you're now saying that that might not have been accurate, correct?
it could have been a different word.
Okay, but you didn't say it could have been a different word yesterday. You just left it as sitting outside, correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I said, sitting.
All right, so now we get from, the grand jury with many hours mentioned to questions about many hours to sitting outside to let's talk about what you said on cross-examination.
I object.
Okay, the objection sustained.
Sure. On cross-examination, your words were, she said he had been out in the snow without a jacket on for many hours, correct?
She had asked if he had been outside, if there was any chance he could be alive, even though he was outside without a jacket for many hours.
So it always was a question, correct?
It was a question.
She never said what you said on cross-examination yesterday, which was she said that he had been out in the snow without a jacket on for many hours. That was not a declarative statement by Ms. Reed, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Was that a declarative statement by Ms. Reed?
She asked if he could be alive without a jacket in the snow for many
All right,
hours.
so again, it was a question, sir.
She asked me, and we were just trying to give her hope in terms of telling stories of hypothermic patients that could survive outside in the snow.
Okay, is there any redirect?
Briefly.
Okay.
When you were called to the grand jury, was the testimony as in-depth and as long as it is in front of this jury?
No, not even close.
When you're recounting your memories of what happened, do you memorize word for word what you've said in the past?
Objection.
As to that form, it's sustained.
When you're recounting the past, do you record your statements personally?
Objection.
I'm going to let that word. Do you record your statements?
No,
Next question.
When you testified in the grand jury, page 90, line 15, and you said the defendant told you, I'm upset if he dies, I want to die. And then you later testify last year, and you said, if my husband dies, I want to die. Do you notice the little differences between those phrases?
I do.
Is that you making up words?
No,
Is that you trying to help a case?
Objection.
As to form, that's sustained.
Are you inventing facts?
no,
Sir, when you were recounting what happened that day, are you using your best memory?
Objection.
When you were asked by the defendant about how long, or someone out in the snow without a jacket for many hours, do you remember that conversation with her?
I do.
Where were you during that conversation?
We were in the back of the ambulance.
Do you remember it distinctly?
I remember it distinctly. She was looking at me.
When you tried to give her hope and comfort, and you told her stories about other situations where people, maybe children, have fallen through the ice and had hypothermia, did you have that conversation with her in trying to comfort her?
I did.
Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
Did you necessarily share those conversations with the grand jury?
I don't recall if I did or I didn't.
Did you ever write that in your report?
No,
Is it something you typically put everything in your report?
no, we do not write. But generally, we only write patient complaint, what happened, and what they did. not their opinions or anything like that of what's going on.
Do you have any interest in the outcome of this case?
I do not.
How long have you been a firefighter for?
Since March of 2006, and an EMT since November of 2002.
Over 20 years.
Correct.
You said that you live near Kerry Roberts?
I do.
You've been to a block party for the kids where you've brought the fire engine down?
I do.
I'm going to allow it.
When you're at that block party, do you ever step out and have secret meetings with Kerry Roberts trying to corroborate some conspiracy on their behalf?
No. No.
Put your career on the line? No further questions.
Any follow-up, Mr. Yannetti?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Firefighter Whitley, you are all set.
Like to play clip 5, Your Honor?
And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think it looks like he got hit by a car. It looks like he got hit by a car.
All right, who's your next witness, Mr. Brennan?
Next witness is Jean Dmulis.
Okay.
Okay, sidebar. I'm going to move it ahead a few minutes to try to catch up the couple minutes. We got 3 minutes back. There we go. Witness is coming to the stand.
Can I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Jean Dmulis. I am the general manager at CF McCarthy's in Canton.
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up if you would, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
You said you're the general manager at CF McCarthy's?
In Canton, yes.
How long have you been the general manager at CF McCarthy's in Canton for?
For 6 years.
Can you briefly describe for the jury what CF McCarthy's is?
It is a restaurant and bar.
At CF McCarthy's, is there a video surveillance system inside?
Yes.
Who owns that video surveillance system?
CF McCarthy's.
Are you familiar with the video system?
Yes.
Have you ever looked at it before?
Yes.
Do you employ people to help the establishment with the video system?
No.
Do you maintain it on your own?
Yes.
At some point, were you visited by somebody from the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes.
Were you asked whether or not they could view some of your video surveillance?
Yes.
Do you remember the date? Not the date they came to visit you, the date that they were looking for.
I believe it was January 28th, 27th, 28th of 2022.
Around that time?
Yes.
Did you allow access to the video system?
Yes.
Did you oversee that access to the video system?
Yes.
Was it a state police officer?
It was two state police detectives.
Do you remember their names?
I remember one of the detectives' names. I do not remember the other detective.
The one you remember, could you share the name?
It was Detective Buchnick, Yuri.
Detective Yuri Buchnick.
Yes.
At some point, was he allowed to download information from the surveillance system?
Yes.
Did you watch him do that?
Yes, I did.
At some point, have you been able to briefly look at some of that download?
Yes.
And does it appear to be a fair and accurate depiction of the surveillance or the area of your bar?
Yes.
move to introduce.
Okay, there's no objection, Mr. Yannetti.
There is no objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I play just a small portion?
Sure.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm going to show you just some random shots from this video, but I want to know if you recognize it. Is this the inside of C.F. McCarthy's?
Yes.
I'm not asking if you have any particular knowledge or information about that night. I just want to know if is this a fair and accurate depiction of what C.F. McCarthy's looks like?
Yes.
Has there been any substantive, significant changes to the inside of that establishment
No.
since this video was taken?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay.
I have no questions.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Your next witness, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you. Brigid Meehan.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Good morning.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Brigid Meehan.
Where do you work?
I work at the Waterfall Bar and Grill in Canton.
The name maybe tells us a little bit about it, but could you just share a couple lines of what the Waterfall Bar and Grill is?
It's a small family-owned business in Canton. It's in a mixed condo complex.
Are you involved in the ownership of it?
Yes.
How long have you been involved with the Waterfall Bar and Grill?
We've been there approximately 10 years.
Do you help run the establishment?
Yes, I do.
And you were running the establishment back on January 28, 2022? At some point, were you asked or visited to see if your establishment had video surveillance of the inside?
I was.
Does your establishment have video surveillance of the inside?
It does.
Do you have a camera and a server?
Do I have? Yes, I do.
Did you provide video surveillance to the Massachusetts State Police from that night, January 28, 2022?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'd like to move this in as an exhibit, please.
Okay. Mr. Yannetti.
No objection.
Thank you.
With the court's permission?
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm going to show you just a brief clip. Okay, stop, please. Do you see that video?
I do.
Does that depict the inside of McCarthy's?
No.
I'm sorry, the Waterfall?
Yes.
I'm trying to switch establishments on you. Back on January 28, 2022, does that look the way it looked then?
Yes.
Has there been any significant changes inside since then?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
No questions.
All right, Ms. Meehan.
Thank you.
All right, your next witness, Mr. Brennan.
Commonwealth calls Mike Camerano.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Take the stand.
Good morning.
May I?
Please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good morning. My name is Michael Camerano.
Camerano, can I ask how old you are? I'm sorry.
Spell your last name.
Camerano.
And so if you could either move the microphone down a little bit or speak up, or maybe a combination of both, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask you how old you are?
48,
Where do you live?
Canton, Mass.
How long have you lived in Canton for?
Me and my wife have lived there for 20 years. Me and my wife have lived there for 20 years. We have 2 children.
How old are your children, sir?
My daughter is 17. My son is 14.
Did you know Johnokeefe?
Yes.
How did you know him?
I met John for the first time at his sister's, they had a benefit for his sister in 2000, I think 13. I met John there for the first time. Then years later, our kids got involved with sports together and they became very close. As they became close, I became very close with John and his family.
Was your daughter close with John's niece?
Yes.
Was your son close with?
Yes.
Did you spend a lot of time together through sports and socially?
Yes, we did.
I want to take you forward to January 28th of 2022.
Okay.
Do you remember that day?
Yes.
Had you, without any discussion of what might have been said, did you have any discussions with John that day?
Yes.
Did you have a plan?
Yes, we were communicating.
At some point, did you decide that you were going to spend some time or go meet John?
Yes. That Friday, my daughter and his daughter, they got acceptance letters to school. So we wanted to get them together so they could enjoy the time together. And, just, go over like how it would be so much fun, something new, different. Yeah, so we were going to meet up after I got out of work.
Was your daughter planning to go to a new school?
Yes.
Where?
Bishop Fan.
And how about his niece?
Same.
They both got accepted to
They
the
both
same
got
school?
accepted to the same school.
Was it a celebratory move?
Yes.
Did you have a plan to bring the children together so they could celebrate?
Yes, we did.
And then separately, you were going to meet John and celebrate?
Correct.
Where did you drop your daughter off?
I dropped my daughter off at John. I went into John's. I was at the house with John and the girls, and we had a little celebration. Talked about how nice it's going to be, fun, change, different, meet new people.
And you celebrated at John's house before you went out?
Correct.
After the celebration with your children, did you and John leave?
Yes.
During that celebration, was there anybody there other than you, John, and your 2 daughters?
No. No. Karen was not there.
Was there anybody else there?
No, just the 2 girls, myself and John.
What was the weather like that night?
It was cold. It was not snowing yet.
Was there an expectation?
Yes, there's an expectation. Yes.
What was that?
That there was going to be a big snowstorm coming in.
A storm was coming.
Yes.
When you left, did you leave in a separate car than John, or did you leave together?
No, we left together. John got in my car and we were leaving. We're going to leave.
Where were the girls?
The girls were in the house, stayed in the house.
They were staying at John's house?
Yes, correct.
Where did you go?
We went to CF McCarthy's.
When you got there, did you know anybody who was there other than you and John?
At that time, no.
Did you spend time at CF McCarthy's?
Yes.
Were you drinking?
Yes.
Was John drinking?
Yes.
Alcohol?
Yes.
How long were you there for?
A couple hours.
While you were there, did anybody come and meet you that you knew?
Yes.
Who?
A friend. And then Karen came in.
the friend.
Yes.
What was the friend's name?
Kurt.
And then how long after you first got there was it that the defendant arrived?
I would like to say within an hour, so not 100% sure.
You said back home it was a celebratory mood. Was it still a celebratory mood at McCarthy's?
Yes.
When the defendant arrived, did she spend time with you and John?
I've talked briefly to her, and her and John were mostly talking.
You didn't see any issues?
No.
It was a normal night?
Seemed to be, yes.
As far as you could see?
Yes.
And you saw John drinking?
Yes.
Did you see the defendant drinking?
I saw her with a glass, yes.
Did you leave at the same time that John left?
No, I did not.
When you left, was John still at the establishment?
Yes.
When you left, was the defendant still with him?
Yes.
Why did you leave?
I left because I got a phone call. My son was playing hockey in the backyard, and he got hit with a stick and lost his tooth.
Oh. Where did you go?
I went to my son's friend's house.
Do you know about what time that was when you went to see your son?
I would like to say 9:30, between 9:30 and 10.
You didn't go back to McCarthy's that night, did you?
No, I did not.
After you helped your son, where did you go next?
I went to pick up my daughter, Madeline,
Did you go?
at John's house.
Did you go in John's house?
No, I did not.
When you got to John's house, did your daughter come out?
No. We went to the side door and rang the doorbell.
And then what happened?
And then my daughter came to the door.
Where'd you go?
From there, we left and went home.
When you went home, had the weather changed at all?
It was cool. It might have been flurrying at that time.
No accumulation?
No.
You got home?
Yes.
Did you do anything significant when you got home?
Put the kids to bed, my son, and no, I went to bed.
What's the next thing you remember happening?
Waking up to, I missed some phone calls.
Who were the missed phone calls from?
From my wife and Karen.
What did you do?
I called my wife.
After speaking to your wife, what did you do?
I got in my car and drove to John's house.
About what time was this?
In between maybe 5 and 6 a.m.
What was your mood at that point?
I was panicked.
Why did you go to John's house?
Because I went to get Kaylee.
Did you know if she was alone?
Yes.
How long did it take you to get to John's house?
Maybe 5-7 minutes.
When you get to John's house, what do you see?
I pull in the driveway. I see that the garage door is open. I go in through the garage door. I don't know if Kaylee was standing there, if the door, she came out the door, and I asked her, if she needed anything, she could get in my car and stay warm.
When you first saw Kaylee, what did she look like?
She looked distraught.
Did you try to help her?
Well, I think I just said everything will be okay. Yeah.
Did she come with you?
Yes.
Where are you going?
To my house.
So what happens?
So we go to my house, and my daughter's up, and the two girls they were hanging downstairs, just hanging out, just being kids. And then, I don't know, a couple hours later, maybe, Paul called me and asked me to bring Kaylee home.
Did you know anything at that point?
I did, yes.
You did or didn't?
At that point, I did when Paul had told me.
So what do you do?
asked Madeline and Kaylee if I say, Madeline, we come for the ride. I don't say anything to Kaylee, and we get in the car and I start heading back to John's house.
And you didn't say anything to Kaylee?
No, I didn't. I just said everything will be all right. She had a feeling.
Why do you say that?
She don't want to go home.
So what happens next?
So I pull in the driveway, and I remember Paul and Papa standing. I think they were standing at the side door, and we just embraced.
Did you stay?
No, not long. No.
Did you go back?
I was to the house. I went back to my house.
Did you go back to John's house?
I did the next day. Yes, I was there.
When you went back, were there people there?
Yes,
Many?
there was people coming and going.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Good morning, Mr. Camerano.
Good morning.
This is quite painful for you to remember the events of January 28th, is it not?
Yes,
You were very close with your friend John O'Keefe, correct?
I was close with them. Yes,
And you actually met Karen Reed through John, correct?
correct.
After meeting Karen, you spent a good amount of time with both Karen and John, correct?
Correct.
As of January 28th of 2022, you had known Karen for maybe about a year or so,
Sounds correct.
and you'd see them especially on Fridays, correct?
Correct.
That would be sort of the day that you get together with both of them often.
Yes,
And of course, your children spent a lot of time with John and Karen, right?
correct.
You entrusted both Karen and John with your kids.
Yes,
Sometimes your kids would even go on vacation with Karen and John, right?
they did go to the Cape. Yes,
Sometimes you'd see Karen without John at your house or on a ball field. And your daughter in particular would sometimes spend time with just Karen without John, correct?
correct.
Your daughter would sometimes go over to Karen's house in Mansfield when she lived there, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, when your daughter would go to Karen's house in Mansfield, Karen would be the one in charge of caring for her, correct?
Correct.
And you were fine with that because you liked and you trusted Karen, right?
Correct.
And in your view, Karen was very good with kids, right?
Correct.
But you also had the opportunity to see Karen and John together, right?
Yes,
You saw how they interacted with each other over that year period that you knew Karen?
yes,
You saw how they got along?
yes.
And you never observed any arguments or bickering, correct?
I mean, they argued and bickered.
You had previously testified that you wouldn't even call it arguing, you just call it banter, right?
Yes, I mean, he would, I mean, no, he would get upset or like over if she bought expensive things for the kids.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we will get to that. That would be the one thing that John would complain about, Karen buying like very nice things for his niece and nephew, right?
Correct.
Or he'd complain if, Karen was taking his niece and other girls to get their nails done, like extravagances like that.
Correct.
And one specific memory you have is when Karen bought his niece a very expensive sweater, right?
Correct.
And you recall John telling you that he wished that she hadn't done that because he considered that to be spoiling the girl, correct?
Yes.
But it was very clear to you from your observations that Karen really, really liked John. I'm sorry, John really liked Karen, right?
Sustained.
He certainly never told you or even suggested he was thinking about or planning to break up with Karen, right?
No.
Okay, so with regard to that Friday night, January 28th, sir, the plan was for you and John to go to McCarthy's to have some drinks because there was a storm coming in, correct? And because of the celebration of the girls getting into Bishop Fen?
Well, yeah, we were going out. It wasn't a continuation of the celebration of the girls. We were going out to have a few beers as guys.
Okay. And when you were leaving the house, John asked you to move your car, right?
Correct.
Where was your car when John asked you to move it that night?
Actually, I backed up my car. We were leaving the driveway, and John asked me to stop so he could move his car.
I see. And he wanted you to move your car because of the storm coming in, and you wanted Karen to be able to pull her car into the garage, right?
Correct.
And that was really thoughtful of him, wasn't it?
Yes, extremely.
And it showed you that he was being chivalrous toward Karen that night, right?
Yes.
He didn't want Karen to be out in the heavy snow later when she returned to his house during the expected blizzard, right?
Sustained.
You took from that there was an expectation that Karen would be coming back to his house, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You had no inkling that day that anything was wrong between Karen and John, correct?
No.
Everything seemed fine between the two of them, right?
Yes, he did. He did mention though that night that he didn't understand why Karen had a plumber go to the house.
Because he had somebody that could have done that work instead of paying for the plumber, right?
Well, yes.
Okay.
And
but in any case, the plan was for Karen to meet up with the two of you, right?
yes.
And she did show up to McCarthy's at about 8:30 p.m. or so.
Yes, I guess if that's the time.
And you saw an affection.
I'm sorry, what was the answer that you
If
said?
that was the time, I'm not sure about the timeline.
Okay. It was sometime after you'd gotten there. Right.
Correct.
But you do remember when Karen arrived, there was an affectionate greeting between John and Karen, right?
Yes.
You saw them kiss, right?
Yes.
You saw John put his arm around Karen,
Correct.
and you saw that Karen sort of nestled into his embrace.
Correct.
And when she did that, that's when he kissed her, correct?
Yes.
And they seemed happy to see each other, did they not?
They did.
That night they were affectionate,
Yes.
laughing,
Yes.
happy,
Yes.
like a normal couple.
Yes.
No arguments.
No.
You witnessed no bickering, no tension, correct?
No.
And during the month before John's passing, that January of 2022, you observed their relationship in your presence to be normal, caring, and affectionate, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
You were asked a number of questions about the relationship between John and Karen that night. Do you know what was going on behind closed doors other than what you saw?
I'll allow it.
No.
Do you know whether or not they texted each other that day?
No. That day, no.
Do you know whether or not there was any arguments that day?
I'll allow it.
Not to my. No, I don't know if they were. Well, I don't know if they were arguing over the plumber situation.
Do you know if there's any vulgarities that day?
No.
Do you know if there's any vulgarities that night?
No, not to my knowledge.
Do you know whether or not John was trying to end the relationship with Miss Reed?
Do you know that, sir?
No.
Next question.
Do you know if there was any jealousy in that relationship?
I'll allow it.
I mean, I mean, Karen wouldn't let, I mean, they did everything together, a lot of things together. And I thought at times, yeah, you could see, you know, she didn't want other women around John. I don't know, not at that, but.
Thank you.
You follow up? All right, Mr. Camerano, you're all set, sir. I'll see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit again. We're going to try to get caught up again because of me being late. They did play the video, so it came in. Okay. Nope, still not back.
May I?
Please.
I'm going to recall Nick Guarino.
Okay.
From yesterday. This is the I guess you would say the cell phone data expert, the extractor. We talked about the Celebrate reports and such. The two women witnesses before were just to verify the surveillance system and the taping systems in both of the bar locations.
Comment, please.
Okay.
Sure, you can have a seat. I'll remind you you're still in your.
Or stand, however you're most comfortable today. Just do whatever you need to do, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, everyone.
Sir, yesterday we talked about downloading phones and making what you called extractions.
Yes.
And from that data, you could create different types of reports.
So have Detective Guarino say his name again, please.
I'm sorry. Again, for the record, could you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record?
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Nicolas Guarino, Guarino.
Thank you.
Sir, you mentioned yesterday that you downloaded a number of phones, or you were involved in the process of downloading a number of phones.
That's correct.
You explained to us that after you have the data analyzed, you can pinpoint certain items that you may want to put in a document.
Yeah, so the extractions into a program of our choosing, Cellbrite is the most commonly used, and then we can take call logs or text messages, any information that the investigator is looking for.
When you downloaded Mr. O'Keefe's phone and you downloaded the defendant's phone, did you try to create, or did you create a report through Cellbrite, the software, that would show you all of Mr. O'Keefe's call logs?
Yes, I did.
And when I use the term call logs, what does that mean?
The call logs are the calls that the phone receives.
How do you create a report from Cellbrite? Can you just walk us through that process briefly?
Yep. So in the program, you can go in and select the calls from it and export it into different formats, PDF, XML, HTML, or you can create a portable case and extract them all as a portable case that we would see on my computer.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a document of Mr. O'Keefe's call logs. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is it?
It is the call logs. Just want to make sure it's between John O'Keefe and the defendant from, just want to see the dates, the 28th, January 28th, 2022 to January 29th, 2022.
Would this contain all the phone calls from his phone data for the calls between those two parties that night?
Yes, that's what I created.
I'd like to move this as an exhibit, please.
Okay. So,
If I could, Your Honor, just want to compare, make sure we have the same.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Consent.
okay.
No objection.
You captured all of the phone calls between two parties on that last document. Can you also do that with chats?
Yes, that is true.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a document of chats between the phones of the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe for after midnight for the evening hours of January 29, 2002?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm good.
You recognize that document, sir?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell us what that is?
These are the texts from the defendant to John O'Keefe. Yes.
For January 29, 2022?
Yes, that's correct. I'm sorry.
I'd move this as an exhibit, Your Honor.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 24.
Did you identify or specify chat messages between John O'Keefe and a person named Jen McCabe?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a Cellbrite report?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, can we have just a brief moment, please?
It's sidebar?
No.
Just the two of
to compare that what we have.
Yes, go ahead.
It's curious.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. You're welcome.
Sir, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize it?
Yes. This is the text messages between John O'Keefe and Jen McCabe on 29th to on January 29th, 2022.
And this is through a certain Cellbrite and you match their data on all of their conversations?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. I move we do this, please, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
25.
All right. Also, this is witness 9, if you count today, but he was also witness number 4.
Similarly to the chats, did you do the same with calls between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. McCabe?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a document, sir. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this is the call log between John O'Keefe and Jen McCabe for, just want to make sure I get all the dates correct, just for January 29th, 2022.
Your evidence, Your Honor.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 26.
Did you do a file extraction and a report on all chats between the phones of John O'Keefe and the defendant for a period of time?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Handing you a document. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this is the text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant from January 28th to January 29th, 2022.
Your Honor, move this into evidence.
Okay. Mr. Alessi?
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right. Thank you.
27.
Did you have an opportunity to make a report from some of the data from the defendant's phone from January 29, 2022?
What are you referring? I did make some reports from the defendant's phone.
What's a call log report?
Again, the call log report is the calls that the party makes to another phone. So it's going to show everyone they've called or attempted to call.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you to take a look at this document. Do you recognize it?
Yes,
And could you tell the jury what it is?
it's the call log from the defendant's phone for January 29th, 2022. It looks like everyone's she called.
Introduce this as an exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 28.
What we just introduced into evidence is the entire call log of calls to anybody and everybody to and from for that period of time.
Yes,
That's fair to say?
yes, that's correct.
And then can you further isolate calls between just two parties?
Yes, you can. You can search by phone number or name.
And did you do that with the defendant's records for some parties?
Yes, I did.
Did you isolate phone calls between the defendant and Ms. McCabe for the evening of January 29, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Guys, take a look at this document. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's the phone calls from the defendant and Jennifer McCabe, January 29th, 2022.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd like to move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
Exhibit 29.
Did you isolate calls between the defendant and Ms. Roberts for the night of January 29, 22?
Yes, I did.
Can I see the last exhibit, please? Thank you, sir. I asked you to take a look at that document. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Could you share with the jury what it is?
Yep. It's the call logs between the defendant and Kerry Roberts for January 29th, 2022. Yes.
And that's a report you created?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, listen to evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Exhibit 30.
Did you have an opportunity to isolate and produce a report for all chats between the defendant and Ms. Roberts for the night of January 29, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And could you share with the jury what that is?
This is text messages between the defendant and Kerry Roberts on January 29th, 2022.
I would move this to evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Jurors, this is the way we have to put evidence in cases in Massachusetts, okay?
Exhibit 31.
Sir, do you have an opportunity to identify a text message or a chat between the defendant and a person by the name of Ingrid on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Take a look at this document. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, this is a text conversation between the defendant and looks like a group chat between Ingrid Curtis and Bill Curtis.
Did you make that report?
Yes, this is on January 29th, 2022.
Thank you. And move this to evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 32.
If this is a good time, if Your Honor would permit.
Okay.
Jurors, what we're going to do is we will take our morning recess now, and we'll take 20 minutes to a half an hour. We'll see you then.
Okay, so morning recess means we get to hang out with the fan, but it also means that we get to go all catch up. It'll be a little less for us. It'll be 15 instead of 20. Excuse me. I didn't mean to cough on you guys. That just happened right in the middle of my sentence. Yep. Thanks for stopping in, Jasper. You'll be lurking and dozing off, maybe. You've got time to catch up on this break because we were behind to begin with, Teresa, because this time it wasn't the internet. This time it was me. I'll just be honest with you guys. My alarm went off. I got up. I made coffee. I got a little too comfortable because I was a little too early for the stream. I sat back. I fell asleep. I literally fell asleep. I woke up. It was late. So I had it all ready to go. That's why I just pushed the button and went. It was totally me. Conscious. Not the consummate professional today. My apologies. Yeah, I know, but yeah. But what they did before I actually went live, when I went live, we were 6 or 7 minutes behind in testimony. And then I went back and I looked at the beginning. All we missed was them discussing whether the clip was going to come in. I will probably add that maybe as a little thing somewhere. Maybe record just that little part and put it in the description for anybody that's worth it. But I really don't think it was that relevant since they did play the clip. I knew they were going to bring the clip in, you know. It was only like 30 minutes. Well, actually, like more like 45. Sorry, I misspoke. More like 45 minutes there, Puff Bunny. So it wasn't really great sleep, and it made me late, and then that just threw me off. Yeah. Hey, Maya, welcome. Are you talking about the clip, Puff Bunnies? Yes, I asked, how do you guys feel about them just throwing it in? They wanted to show that right after Peggy, Mrs. O'Keefe. I'll just say Mrs. O'Keefe out of respect. John's mother's testimony, because she's saying she did not say anything like that. Like, you know, she don't even have a counter. They wanted to show the clip and then to go with her testimony. The contrast, because she actually contests what actually Karen says in that clip, and it's the way, like Puff Bunny says here, she says, I think it shows her character. It kind of really makes her look very bad. I mean, you're talking about your dead boyfriend's mother on the day he died, and this is how you are interpreting it to an interviewer. Yeah. You know, Puff Bunnies, now you're kind of where I am a little bit. Like, I'm trying to approach this as a juror as they piece in the information, but I'm with you on that. I have no doubt that she hit him. I don't think she intended to do it. I think it was manslaughter, just like she was originally charged. In that she was very drunk. She left the scene. But I think they upped the charges for one particular reason. I've been wrestling with this for a while now since they upped the charges. In looking back, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to this case, but I do remember when they upped the charges, and I was like, why? So I go and I look, and I'm thinking it's because I find the evidence of the timeline not matching, in that she kind of realized she hit him, and then she went home, and she instead of calling 911, instead of admitting everything, instead of like just going right there, she immediately started to work on a cover-up. It's the actions of the cover-up. Unfortunately, I sit here with a little more information than a juror would right now, and even many of you in the chat or listening. So I don't want to divulge all of these things, but there are just some things that just don't add up, you know. Especially with the timeline. One of them that struck out to me the most is what we already heard with Carrie Roberts, John O'Keefe's friend, who Karen immediately called at 5 a.m. in the morning and immediately said he's dead, and wanted Carrie to go out and look for him. And I think if she did have a recollection that she hit him, why is she doing that? She then jumps out of the car. She already knows where the body is. That was pretty evident to me. If they've got 3 people in the car, it's snowing, no one else can see anything, she knows exactly where to go immediately. That kind of stuck out to me. And well, like I gotta be honest, like I just thought that was just one more piece that said she knew, and I think that's why they upped the charges. Do I actually think she had intent when she put her foot on the pedal and backed up to do what happened? No, I think it was manslaughter. In other words, an act that she did caused his death, but she didn't intend to do it. However, the reason the charges are upped is all the actions afterwards. Does that make any sense? Yeah, they both were super drunk. You know, I mean, when they talk about the amount of drinks and everything, I mean, I'm just like, wow. I have to say, like, that town is a is a happy that they all drink like that there. It's just, and I'm not saying anything bad about drinking. I mean, people drink to relax. People have stressful days. Oh, that's what they do. There's nothing wrong with that. But that was a lot. That night was a lot. Hey, Clarence. Only 45 minutes. How do you expect us to trust you now? Well, because I fell asleep for 45 minutes on you guys. Well, I don't know. It's going to be up to you, Clarence. I hope I win your trust back. But I'm being honest about it. Like, I'm just having a bit. I will admit it is rough for me to do morning trials because I naturally have a different time schedule. I'm up very, very late. And what happened was yesterday I took a nap after trial. And so I shouldn't have done that because then I would have went to bed earlier and I would have got up. And then when I was up, I probably wouldn't have fallen asleep if I leaned back too comfortable. I would have been a little more less likely. So I will try to work on that. But don't leave me now, Clarence. We had this good thing going. Like, don't leave me now. I'm being honest about it, at least. What can I say? I own my BS for sure. Maybe she's an alcoholic. Well, she does seem to drink a lot. I will tell you one thing I noticed, and I don't want to disparage her as a defendant. I don't. There's nothing wrong with drinking, but every hotel shot they show of her in her home, everywhere, she got a full bar laid out, a full bar. It is part of how they navigate. It is part of how, hello, would you like a drink? Like, come on over. Like, it's just, like 5 o'clock can't come early enough kind of thing, Puff Bunnies. But I don't really, want to say that there's anything wrong with that. Apparently, the guy's alcohol level was at alcohol poisoning, according to the coroner. Well, yeah, we're going to hear all of that coming in, I think. You've been doing some reading, Puff Bunnies. I think I caught you. I think I got you. I got you on that true crime buzz now when you get a case, right? You got to just like, that's the part that gets me. Once I learn a little bit, and then I got to keep digging until I find it all. What about the basement? Tomorrow, kiddo. I'm confused. You have to stop for this one after. But I don't blame you. These things. I had to take a break after I covered Stotch and Lori Vallow-Daybell's Idaho trial with the kids. They both involved children. They were both horrific, and I have to say it messed me up for a while. Y'all might remember that. I was like, no, I do not like to do cases that involve children, especially horrific cases that involve children. And I usually look for a case that has a legal twist. The legal twist on this one was twofold. Not only is it rare to have a retrial so quickly for a hung jury like that, not necessarily unusual. It happens all the time, I will admit. But for the reason that it did. And then all of the hullabaloo after, like about, well, did they actually decide on any of the charges? Because jurors were making statements afterwards. But they never actually filled out the verdict form adequately enough to, in any way enough to have any of the charges be entered into verdict. And that's been the basis of a lot of the appeals going forward. Of course, the defense and Karen Reed want the other two charges that they thought maybe she was not guilty of dropped. And then they couldn't decide on the other one, Yeah, so many. I don't blame you. If I tried to mention every case, Puff Bunnies, that I have been talking about for years, my friend who comes off with me on lunches and breaks sometimes, PNW wife, my friend Mandy, she and I have been talking about cases for years, ever since we've been out here on the socials, really back and forth. There's been a group of us that kind of just liked it. We'd be talking and we would go and watch things. I still do watch. Bailey's hair on because I like the way she does it. Not so much the makeup part, but I just think it's kind of kitschy how she just sits there. It does a bizarre history of the most macabre and weird cases from the past, and she does delve with some of the newer ones, and gets into this like the history of something and gives you all these tidbits, and it was so much fun. Yeah. I'm not sure, Puff Bunnies. I don't remember a case from South Africa. Does anybody else? Yeah. Oh, tomorrow, kiddo. You mean the basement at the house? Well, that is one of the theories of the defense, is that John O'Keefe actually went into the house and that he got beat up there in the basement. Okay. And, Karen had made comments about having some of the carpet, tested and this and that, which none of that was true. It was all just like this scuttlebutt out there on the socials. But the defense is going to actually state that he was in the house, but there's no evidence, and the timeline really kind of prohibits it. That everybody who was at that house, because remember they were invited back for drinks at Brian Albert's house, even though John O'Keefe didn't know him that well. But they were all associated through work in France. I mean, he knew Jen McCabe and her husband, and they invited him back because that is her. She's related somehow to them, or friends with the wife, or something like that. So they all went back for drinks. They were going to continue drinking there. And that's how the timeline kind of starts getting messed up there, because the defense is going to say that there is clips of Karen stating she saw him go into the house. And then there's clips saying he didn't. And then something about a side door. Like, it gets very confusing. And I think this is what piqued the Commonwealth's interest when Hank Brennan joined. All of these statements that are out there that don't line up, and she's making all of these public statements, but she's not going to take the stand. He's trying to get the mess that she caused out here on the socials, and I call it a mess because it was a 3-ring circus. We're talking massive intimidation of witnesses in the last trial. We're talking like identifying jury members, grand jury members, talking about grand jury testimony in the public. Like, we're talking leaked evidence from seals. It was a mess. This is what piqued my interest in this case. It was like, what are we going to do about this? What do we do when the social media presence actually takes control of a case? Because I will admit, it is one of the things that really gets me on my soapbox, is when people who are following true crime, and I'm talking about all of us, it's going to sound a little hypocritical because here I am sitting here, streaming a trial. Okay. And I get that. But for me, there's a line. I don't feel personally invested in messing with anybody involved with this case. I don't feel it is I don't feel I have a right, to do the Commonwealth or the defense's job for them. I do not feel that witnesses should be challenged, intimidated, made fun of, persecuted on the socials or anywhere else. They are honoring an obligation to the way that we do our justice system here in America. They are there to tell their part of the story, whether by subpoena or not, And no, I don't think they got the carpet. This was just the social medias tomorrow, kiddo. I don't want to mislead you. Like, I just saw that question in it, and I was like, no. That was just something that was said on the socials by her so-called Free Karen Reed movement. It was actually put out there by that and talked about by the YouTuber, who I don't want to mention his name, but he is facing charges of witness intimidation. And apparently there was a network set up where information was fed to him from supposedly, allegedly, I'm going to say, because it hasn't come into the trial yet, Karen Reed, through a person who is actually on the Commonwealth's witness list. And they have actually received permission in order to enter these text messages in between Karen Reed and Turtle Boy. Oh shoot, I said I wasn't going to say his name, but I did. Well, he is named officially, and he is there watching the trial, as he has a right to. And he was on the witness list, but had advised the court that he would just plead the fifth. So in a hearing that we all heard, he will probably not be called by the Commonwealth because he'll plead the fifth. However, his testimony, his text messages are more than likely going to come in. And apparently, there were some things about witnesses. Now, I don't know the most of it because I don't follow that case. I don't want to put it on the roster. I was just talking about why I get upset about this stuff. I get on a soapbox when, people who say they're trying to do good or they're just trying to figure out what really happened cross the line, between, what we should be doing out here, just covering it, kind of like a journalist. When a journalist goes and puts a private investigator hat on, but then you find out that they busted into somebody's house. They actually broke the law to do it, busted into the house to look for information and then try to take that information out of context when they take something, from like the bathroom garbage or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we watch on TV like that. That annoys me. Like that kind of makes it a different thing, and it kind of it really interferes with a fair trial when you think about it. It's hard to have an unbiased opinion about the Karen Reed trial, either side that you're on, guilty, not guilty. Is it a conspiracy? Is it not? Was it manslaughter? Was it murder? Whatever. But the social media circus that goes on around it, which I admit, a little hypocritical because I'm up here contributing to it. I'm actually streaming this. But I do think when that hype gets so big, it does interfere. It does interfere. Can you imagine if you watched the first trial and you saw what some of those witnesses went through? Can you imagine if all of a sudden you were asked to testify? Would you not be apprehensive? Does that not interfere with actually the justice system in general when witnesses have to worry about being attacked out here socially because they're testifying, doing their responsibility, they're testifying in a court case? Or how about the jurors? Who wants to sit on a jury when you know that the last jurors were actually, their names were put out there and personal information about them were put out there, not to mention violating the sanctity of the grand jury process. Yeah, people are just horrible, and I'll admit it's a little hypocritical because I'm up here trying to do it, but I will say I hold myself back a lot. Like I want everything to be fair. Yeah, I have my opinion about stuff, and I get really preachy when it comes to people crossing the line, and that can be annoying. It makes me sound like, oh, what, Bear thinks she holier than that. No, I don't. It's just my standard and what I want out here, and I take full responsibility for being out here and contributing to the true crime community. But I think there are plenty out here in the true crime community who do it right, who want the information out there, want it enjoyable for you guys, want you to be able to express your opinions, pro or con, in a respectful, open environment where everyone's opinion is allowed without the name calling and the hip, all of that stuff that I see out there on some of these platforms. There are plenty. And that segues to a really nice Discord that I found in. Hold on, I'm going to drop that link again because I told you, I have great respect for anyone out here doing the work of finding out all of the information and then actually being willing to share it. Like some accounts, like they have all really good information, but because maybe they treat this more like a business and not a hobby. So I'm not disparaging them in any way. Please don't get me wrong. But they don't share the information. Like they get, because they're using it for their streams and their shows, and I get that. But there's plenty of us out here. If we get the information we want to share it out. And this Discord is one of them. This is the Seeking Justice Discord, which is open, and they're covering way more cases than I am. And I know that sometimes you guys ask me about a case and I'm not covering it. And the reason I want to promote this Discord is because you can go there and you can actually probably find that case, because they're got to be covering and keeping track with the team more, like 3 times the cases that I'm covering. They also do a lot with the missing, which I have to give them credit for. There's a whole section there to cover podcasts. They also are promoting many of us small, mid-sized, and some of the larger YouTube channels and podcast channels, giving everybody a wide berth of choice. Not playing favorites or anything like that. Like, I just joined and they promote me. They don't know me from Adam, but they're so nice about it, you know. And when I say promote, I mean just like they got a room where when you go live, it'll show that you're live, and people have the opportunity to know what you're doing on your channels or your podcasts. You know, I don't mean out there like ringing a bell or anything like that, but in a nice way. Like, they are supporting. They do retweets on X. They have an account there too. I'm too adorable to sound preachy. Hey, listen, I know my faults. I know I get preachy. Like, I do. I do. Like, listen, I know myself pretty well, and I know I can get really obnoxiously preachy about right and wrong and where my boundaries are. Although I am willing to say that my boundaries are my boundaries, and they don't apply to everybody. Everybody chooses their own, and everybody has that right. And YouTube is a huge place, so don't get me wrong. The people that are doing YouTube their way, they have every right to. There are millions of channels out here, okay? And everybody has a right to do it their way. And I'm not going to I would never take that away from anybody. It's just not for me. I have a right to my opinion, and it's not for me to cross those boundaries. You know, when it comes to the families, when it comes to the victims of these crimes, these court cases, there's a victim in every court case. Okay, there's a family left behind, friends, loved ones. You know, and the justice system is balanced. And I just, just like the defendant has every right to put on the defense their way. I can't even criticize the way the defense is doing what they're doing here, because of course they're going to attack it however they feel right. And if they wanted to turn it into a public relations circus out there, that's their right to do it. Would I do it that way? No. But that's their right, She said, yeah, tomorrow Kitty says, yeah, nah. I think the same about me, and in my own videos, I sound not as preachy as I think I do. Okay, well, I just know that it's not going to always be for everybody. You know what I mean, tomorrow, kiddo? Like, I don't want anyone to think I'm telling you what to do. I would never absolutely do that. What's right for me is not right for everybody. I get that. And I have enough grace in me for even those I disagree with to say that I'm never gonna like violate your right to do your thing. I just really find it distasteful when people are getting hurt. I draw the line at rights when it comes to hurting others. Thank you, tomorrow, kiddo. I appreciate that. Hello, you are Victoria. Good to see you. Yeah, is that a corny word, folks? Am I sounding like a hick? I'm from the East Coast. I'm definitely not Southern or anything like that, but I know I sound very grovelly today, so who knows? I have no idea where they're going to say I'm from today. Once they hear my voice, they'll probably say I'm bringing on like a whole nother accent. or, whatever. But it's really just me with a gravelly throat, which I have been suffering with the last year or so, on and off. Everybody knows. Oh, you're asking the folks here. Oh, you use the word folks. I thought maybe I said it because I have been. Somebody else sent me a DM and asked me why I started saying it instead of people. I was like, I didn't notice. I did. I did not notice that I had changed. I guess I interchange, which how I refer to everybody all the time. I say peeps, folks, y'all. Yes, Filipino, clearly. Probably, Couch. I could be too. They say, is it warmer there? Because I would definitely go. Although it's not bad here. It's in the 70s, but we do have a major issue. I can't open any of the windows to let the spring air in because the county down from me, there is a huge fire that has destroyed a lot of forestry, but the smoke is so bad that it's like everywhere. Like they had to close the parkway because of course the fire was like threatening to jump the parkway, but also the visibility. There was too many accidents. You can't open the windows because your whole house will just fill with that smoky, horrible thing, and it's terrible. Like they lost quite a few buildings. There have not been any deaths, so that I know of so far. I tracked it this morning, but we're losing a lot of natural forestry right now. It's been too dry, and of course I'm not really like, it's nowhere near what happened in Australia a few years ago or what happens in California regularly, and they're back. And by the way, we're all caught up. I like it.
All right.
Please be seated. Court is in session.
Could I see counsel for a minute regarding scheduling, please?
Oh, well, what? Okay, did it come back just to do that? Okay, I'm going to leave it up. I'll just continue to talk. Well, Couch is offering to train me in stereotypical Canadian accent to really start throwing up. Could you do that and add a little French? I love French. I can't speak it because I sound like a cornball when I do, but I love the way it hits my ear. I do. So yeah, can I be French Canadian? Yeah. We'll start a rumor there, Rocket Couch, and then by tomorrow they'll say I'm your account. I swear. So people are ridiculous out there sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, you're Victoria. I use guys too a lot. I go, oh yeah, guys, like especially if we're gaming and stuff with everybody. It's just kind of really casual. Peeps, folks, guys, gang. But to me, here on my channel, we started calling y'all murder minions. That's why if you remember, you'll see the emojis. It is a select bunch of minions all dressed up as like your favorite TV serial killers, like Chucky and Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger. Yeah. I did not create them. They were created for me by a friend who was helping with the channel at the time. Counter Talk. It's pretty cool. Oh yeah, rabbits could. Well, he would be upset because I would never get the accent right, Rocket Couch. Yeah. But yeah, he's the French Canadian. But I do love my maple syrup, and Tim Hortons. Yay. Oh, and we have cookies. Yeah. Yeah, it does feel weird, right, Victoria? Because like even if it's like half of us we're women, right? But I'm going, yeah, guys, like hello. But I do mean the collective. I do know somebody that calls people the collective.
Okay, thank you.
All right, they're bringing the jury back. By the way, tomorrow is only a half day, from what I understand, of court, but it's not going to be the voir dire of the ARCA witnesses. I do believe that was pushed to Monday, but now that she's talked to everybody, that could change. That could change, and we won't hear about it, I guess, until it comes up from one of the attorneys or she gives the instruction to the jury. There's your favorite fan, Rocket Couch. Actually, that's not your fan. Your fan's the one over on the other side of the light that they only show on special occasions. And at least one of us makes cheese. Jin is known to make a good cheesecake, an excellent cheesecake from what I've heard. We have to get that recipe. I do adore cheesecake. Who doesn't like cheesecake?
Back in session, you may be seated.
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Just a few more items I'd like you to recognize. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Showing you an envelope. Do you know what's in that envelope?
Yes, it's the raw data extraction of John O'Keefe's cell phone.
All right, I ask it to be marked simply for identification, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Second folder.
Yes, the raw data extraction of Jen McCabe's cell phone that I created.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, I ask it to be marked for identification as well.
All right. Thank you.
Trooper, you shared with us that you downloaded the extraction of the phones that you identified and you made reports based on specific identified features. For example, a conversation between two people.
Yes, so I didn't do the extraction of Jen's phone, but I made those reports with the PDFs from the data extraction.
Relative to Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant's phones, you created a document that provided us the phone calls between them on January 29th.
Yes, that's correct.
And separately, you also provided a document that included all of the chats or text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant on January 29th, 2022.
Yes, it also included the 28th.
Thank you.
Yes.
And in that compilation, did you put together or do you create or review a PowerPoint of those?
Yes, I did.
And what was the point of that?
Just to show the texts and calls in a chronological order, because that way you're not looking at two different documents trying to compare and contrast the calls to text messages when each is coming in.
And did you begin that PowerPoint presentation with a call at 2:16:10 on January 28, 2022?
Yes, that's correct.
And are there additional chats or text messages earlier that morning?
Yes, there's a handful starting around 9:45 a.m.
May I
Yes.
approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Handing you a folder, sir. Could you take a look at it? Let us know if you recognize what's in it.
Yes. So this is the bulk of this is the PowerPoint calls and text messages, and then at the beginning there's the messages from before 2:16 in the morning.
I'd like to introduce this as an exhibit, Your Honor.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
With your permission, I'd ask the witness to read the text messages from the morning hours, and then we begin the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you have a hard copy of those for me?
It was provided. I'll see if you have another copy if you don't have it.
All right. I have, it's in here, the pre-morning hours. The ones that we discussed at Sidebar. If you don't have them,
The defense has a copy for you, Your Honor.
thank you.
Madam? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Little.
Okay, thank you.
May we begin, Your Honor?
Please.
Could you first read the text messages from that morning to the jury?
Yes. Apologize if I misspelled things or state things. Start time, all right. It's a little different than the format I had before. All right, this is from Karen Reed to John O'Keefe. You have really hurt me this time. This was sent at 9:49:20 a.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant. I'm sorry, this has been an issue with me for 8 years. It physically hurts me to see everyone else in their life do things for them, and I'm forced to always be the bad guy. This is sent at 10:02:56 a.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm not the same as everyone else. Most of the time I try to do what is healthy/smart for them. More importantly, I try to support you in what you need. You just lashed out at me and said terrible things. I don't know how you've gotten to this point with me when I'm just trying my hardest. You made your point and continue to beat me down. I have a lot going on too. Physically, I am falling apart and trying to get answers and help. 10:09:49 a.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe. I am just your girlfriend. I am not a perfect parent. I'm trying very hard and sometimes treat them nothing like I used to. 10:46 a.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant. I know, I'm sorry for lashing out. I'm just hurting and struggle daily with them. Always feel like I'm failing at this parenting thing. I wasn't built for this. 10:14:12 a.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe. Kaylee isn't perfect, but everything wonderful about her is because of you. 12:21:36 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji is sent at 12:21:59 on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, it's true, I know she's her mother's daughter, but she wouldn't be so bright and successful if she lived with anyone else. 12:22:51 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, wow, Kristen just sent 2 back-to-back messages to not lose your faith in the kids. 12:31:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or in yourself, at 12:31:41 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, there's 2 emojis sent at 12:32:06 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, and there's 2 emojis. Life can pick you up sometimes. Please be happy with them and put away your frustrations for the rest of the day. And be so proud of yourself, JJ. That's 12:33:35 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, that's what bothers me more than anything. Should have sent Peg's or Sarah's W-2s. We're all equal guardians. 1:18:21 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, maybe you can call someone. 1:21:55 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, like who? 1:46:42 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what time are you coming here? 1:47:38 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, it's another emoji sent, 2:05:30 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't know what time, feel kind of out of it, just trying to clear my head, 2:06:07 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, he writes, okay, 2:06:25 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, text me when you guys settle in later, 2:06:44 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, sure, 2:06:58 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to, oh, no, it's cut off here, sir.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
That must be where the, so, sorry.
Would it be helpful if I take it out of the binder?
I believe it goes to the next one, so I'll start. Yeah, sorry.
With the court's permission, we'll begin the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Should I
At your
do it
leisure.
first? Okay. The phone call signatures. We'll start with the first slide. So it's from the defendant to John O'Keefe. I feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back over after everything you said. 2:16, 10 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not sure what you want me to do. I said I'm sorry and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it. 2:17, 16 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, things in my own life have been difficult too, you know. 2:17, 33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I know. 2:17, 40 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:17:45 p.m., the defendant calls John. The phone call is answered and they speak for 2 minutes, 22 seconds. 2:23:02 p.m., the defendant calls John. That's again answered at 10, and they speak for 1 minute, 2 seconds. At 2:24:17 p.m., the defendant calls John and the call is rejected. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, tell me if you're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this. 2:25:18 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, nope. 2:25:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that? 2:26:03 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:28:40 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected.
Mr. Guarino, can you explain to us the difference between not answered and rejected?
Yes, so if the call is not answered, that means the call rang out and goes to voicemail. If the call is rejected, that is someone actively hitting the send to voicemail button to disable the call, to stop it from ringing. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, kids are here, not in the mood to talk. 2:29:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into it anymore. That's fine, but I don't want to keep trying and you keep treating me like this. 2:29:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning and you whack me in the face with a pillow. 2:29:59 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, last night you're basically like, yeah, what about when we talk about the future? So why don't you just admit you're not into so much anymore? 2:30:23 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not how it went down, but okay. 2:30:26 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please admit your head is out of the game with us? 2:30:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently. 2:32:28 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:32:47 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, OMG, stop calling. 2:32:54 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then why would you start with me this morning? 2:32:58 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you're setting me up to fail. 2:33:05 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you started a number of fights from your end. 2:33:26 p.m. on the 28th. And John O'Keefe to the defendant, I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again. 2:33:31 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into this anymore. 2:33:41 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not into fighting all the time, correct. 2:34:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if you tell me you're interested in someone else, you will never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world. 2:34:11 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, he sends an emoji. 2:34:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then stop starting with me, 2:34:20 PM on the 28th. 2:34:29 PM, the defendant calls John. He rejects the call. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'm not answering, stop calling, 2:34:42 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please answer after how you treated me earlier? 2:34:43 PM on the 28th. 2:34:54 PM, the defendant calls John. That's rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, Kaylee is right here, 2:35:02 PM on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, you start a rager with me out of nowhere and then tell me you're sick of fighting with me, 2:35:41 PM on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm going to grab a drink in a bit, 2:38:14 PM on the 28th. 2:38:42 PM, the defendant calls John. That call is rejected. The defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please answer? 2:38:52 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, no, Karen, not sure why you need to announce that you're going, not sure why you need to announce that you're grabbing a drink, but have fun. 2:39:46 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, seeing if you want to meet me later, 2:40:22 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please call me? 2:40:32 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, have to take them to the doctor. He has practice. 2:40:55 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, 5 minutes. 2:41:17 PM on the 28th. At 2:43:01 PM, the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 2:43:45 PM, the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, my father just walked in. 2:43:58 PM on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, can you please call me for 2 minutes? 2:44:14 PM on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, not right now. 2:44:23 PM on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm there when anyone else needs me. 2:44:26 PM on the 28th. At 2:45:32 PM, the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. The defendant calls Mr. O'Keefe. Yes, John, you gave me utter grief this morning. I'd like you to call me for amends. 2:46:16 PM on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I've been trying to get over the hump with is arguing, and now you tell me you're not into doing things, and you don't want to fight weekly, but fly off the handle at 8 a.m. with me, like you're setting me up to fail. 2:47:08 PM on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I've been dealing with my own personal crisis over things I have zero control over. I'd like to lean on you too sometimes. Instead, I just hear everything I've done wrong. 2:48:34 PM on the 28th. At 2:56 PM, the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. At 2:51:13 PM, the defendant calls John. It's rejected. 2:52:37 PM, John calls the defendant. It's not answered. At 2:53:56, the defendant calls John. Again, not answered. The defendant, John O'Keefe, you seriously cannot pick up the phone for 2 seconds. 2:54:13 PM. 2:58:05 PM, the defendant calls John. It's rejected. At 2:59:13, John calls the defendant. The call is answered and they speak for 4 minutes, 59 seconds. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, why don't you meet me at Hillside at 4:30/5, 3:08:55 PM. John O'Keefe to the defendant sends an emoji at 3:10:08 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or whenever you get, or whenever you get everyone settled, 3:10:35 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, like I said, doctor now, and he has practice till 6. If you want to go start drinking, then go for it. 3:36:21 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I didn't know the times of his practice. 3:36:40 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I just want to give you space at the house without me there. So rather meet you out than meet at the house. 3:37:01 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, yeah, well, now there's a 72-year-old taking up shop on my couch. 3:37:36 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, that too. 3:37:46 p.m. 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, is he going to Collins? 3:38:23 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, not tonight. 3:38:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so do you plan on going out tonight? 3:39:01 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Karen, I don't know. 3:39:17 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you're like jonesing to drink, so go. 3:39:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, after how this morning went down, I don't think I need to be back over there with you. Get frustrated at how I am with the kids. Has nothing to do with drinking. 3:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I am paranoid now that everything I do with them is problematic. So rather see you for a minute without it, kids around. 3:40:24 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what's your plan at 4:47:16 p.m. on the 28th? From the defendant to John O'Keefe, don't have one. 4:50:09 p.m. on the 28th. For John O'Keefe to the defendant, so still home. 4:50:26 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, yes. 4:50:45 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we just got home, waiting to see what Papa decides here, or else I have to get Patrick at 6. 4:59:45 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant, John O'Keefe, okay. 5:01:55 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, so are you staying home or coming here? 5:02:23 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, waiting to see what you end up doing. I don't want to hang out at the house too much, like I said. 5:03:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I think it's clear me around the kids, I think it's clear me around with the kids around is slowly killing our relationship, and our relationship is much more important to me. 5:04:16 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, well, there's a blizzard coming, so we'll be inside all weekend. 5:04:19 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, it will be over by noon tomorrow. 5:04:44 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't think so. 5:05:27 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't want to keep having this constant conflict of the dynamic of the four of us. The harder I try, the more it kills our relationship as a couple. It feels like utter shit to be in that position. Rather just meet you out for drinks when you figure out what your night looks like. 5:06:45 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, well, I have no idea what's going on, so do what you want. 5:07:34 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, need to figure out what everyone here is doing. All I know now is MacLaughlin is coming over. No clue about Patrick yet, or if Papa is planning on hanging it for a few more hours. 5:09:29 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, when you know the story and if you want me to come up, let me know. 5:12:36 PM on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, no, Karen, you decide what you want to do. 5:13:18 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I know your heart isn't in this anymore. I felt it for a while and especially lately. I'm willing to try more, but not if you approaching the point of indifference. If you want me to come up and you can head out for a while, then say so when you know what your father is doing. 5:14:23 PM on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you come up and I head out, really? Emoji. 5:15:48. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I've told you already, I don't bounce back as quickly as you do after we have a battle. 5:16:52 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, head out together with an emoji. 5:17:49 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or meet out. 5:17:54 on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, gonna send Patrick to Collins tonight. They're picking him up around 7. Mike may hang out too when he brings Matt over. So why don't you just come over? 5:19:42 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Mike doesn't want to go out for a bit. 5:20:20 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I would like to, been a shit day from the jump. 5:20:33 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, probably 5:20:39 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I just got sober an hour ago. 5:20:56 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'll text you, hang with Mike for a few. I don't need to butt in. Text me if/when you think you may head out. 5:25:12 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you send me Tim Zoll's contact info, please? 5:26:38 PM on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I paid the last bill. 5:27:08 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you didn't have to do that, thanks. 5:27:43 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, are you really not going to accept my friend request? 5:32:33 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji on what, FB? 5:33:01 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, we've been going out for 2 years. 5:33:20 PM on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I haven't gone on. You defriended me over a year ago, I believe. 5:33:48 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Kerry texted that they're headed out in a bit. 6:05:29 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, okay, 6:14:55 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, she's going to let me know where. 6:17:51 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so you're going to meet them. 6:18:12 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, just presenting it as an option. Wouldn't mind hanging out with them for a drink. 6:19 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, is Mike over? 6:27:26 PM on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, yes, 6:29:45 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, sounds you're like good with getting together tonight. 6:31:32 PM on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, was hoping after this morning you'd be interested in smoothing things over with me. 6:32:24 PM on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, Told you to come over, but you insisted on meeting me out somewhere. 6:44 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Mike is a little off with me for a while now. I've said that multiple times. 6:34 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to Karen, the defendant, time to get over it, Karen. He's fine. He was fine the other night when he came by. 6:38:09 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, wouldn't mind hanging out with other people, like another female too. 6:39:09 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, where are you meeting them? 6:39:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't have plans with them. She just said they're headed out in a bit and will text when they land somewhere. 6:39:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if you want to go out with Mike solo, that's fine. Just let me know. 6:40:17 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I already told you what you should do. Not going to keep doing this. 6:41:07 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I asked to let me know if you guys are going to head out. I haven't been out for drinks this week and had a shit week and a shit day. And I dread Kaylee or Pat is going to get chatty with me the second I walk in, and that is going to irritate you. 6:43:21 on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Pat is leaving. Kay is with Mad Cam. 6:44:02 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'll text Chris then. 6:46:44 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're headed out shortly. What's your plan, Karen? 7:06:13 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, do you want me to join or no? 7:06:37 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, yes, wasn't sure if you were meeting the Currans. 7:07:04 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, they are not out drinking yet. 7:07:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, where are you headed? 7:09:22 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, trying to decide maybe McCarthy's. 7:14:48 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay then, let me know where you decide. I'm still down in Enfield. 7:21:50 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, text me when you leave. Still waiting on McKinney's. 7:22:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm having issues with my hot water, so had to text someone to take a look. 7:24:11 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji, you trying to piss me off. 7:25:35 on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, hope your plumber buddy that you texted is hot. 7:26:24 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, nope, my shower only got lukewarm and now my sink won't run hot at all. The plumber I used is right down the road. 7:26:27 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I turned that temp thing in the basement all the way up. 7:26:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, check the hot water heater and see if it's leaking. 7:26:52 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, it's not. 7:26:59 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't do that. 7:27:01 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, is the pilot lit? 7:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I was trying to get my shower hot, 7:27:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yes, 7:27:14 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't turn it up. Don't turn it all the way up. 7:27:26 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, it will burn out. 7:27:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I had this issue twice before and it wasn't a disaster. I just can't remember what the cause was. 7:27:41 on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, just turn it back to where it was and get over here. 7:28:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't want to come home in a blizzard and then really be up shit creek. 7:28:53 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, so you're going home tonight, 7:29:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or tomorrow or whenever. I've had a chill all day since my shower. 7:29:45 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, it's going to snow all day tomorrow, no driving. 7:30:05 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're headed to McCarthy's. 7:41:29 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, let me know if you end up leaving. 7:41:57 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, why? Now you're not coming. 7:42:27 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm waiting for the plumber. I actually think he's in the driveway. 7:42:56 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're taking Mike's car, so I'm relying on you for a ride home if he leaves. 7:43:10 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he's not going home after. 7:43:27 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, 8 o'clock on a Friday, emoji, 7:43:31 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, he may have to get Michael, 7:43:46 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you have a plumber coming over at 8, knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck. 7:44:36 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I have always told you I will not put either of you out of your way the way everyone else in your life does. I knew it wasn't working right when you were at the doctor's with Kaylee, and I knew neither of you could get here. And this guy, Richie, fixed it last time, whatever it was. He was supposed to be here at 5, 7:48:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if it's not a quick fix, I'll tell him to forget it. 7:48:20 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, if you need a new water heater, don't let him do it. 7:55:04 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant text from the defendant to John O'Keefe, he's here now. If it's not quick, I'm not doing it. I just want to make sure nothing is wrong / will go wrong with when I'm not home. 7:55:44 on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he's not a scammer. Half the quick stuff he doesn't even charge me for. 7:56:06 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he just put the toilet seats on crooked. 7:56:28 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, status 8:09:02 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, still here with an emoji, 8:09:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, said he's got to go to HD and probably be back mañana, 8:23:56 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so 8:24:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, an emoji, 8:25:02 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, just trying to figure out if I need to be here, 8:25:51 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what does it need, 8:26:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't know. He showed me some pieces that was all rusted, with an emoji. I don't understand half this stuff, 8:26:42 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, on the water heater, 8:26:59 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yes, 8:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, tell him to leave it. I'll take care of it Sunday or Monday, 8:28:30 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, it's okay. I can either meet him here or just shut off the alarm, 8:28:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he used to work here while I was at work, 8:29:02 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, does he realize it will be whiteout conditions tomorrow a.m., 8:29:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, but he lives right down the road, 8:29:47 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Karen, this storm is going to be intense. Can't drive, 8:30:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, if he can't, he can't, 8:30:36 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'll do it Monday, 8:30:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I better not still have this problem on Monday, 8:31:22 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, you plan on being there, 8:31:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'd to know I can take a hot shower there here if I need to, 8:32:14 p.m. on the 28th. Figured you'd be, from John O'Keefe to the defendant, figured you'd be in Canton until Monday, 8:32:32 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'm getting off my phone. Let me know what you're doing, 8:32:54 p.m. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I think the four of us together is toxic to this relationship. Would like to limit it, 8:33:16 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you said so yourself for probably a year now, 8:33:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, blizzard tomorrow, nobody is going anywhere, 8:33:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, maybe I'll come back late tonight. Bad snow is in the early a.m., 8:35:14 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'll head up there in a few min. Let me know if you leave, 8:35:26 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji, he says, sure, 8:35:34 p.m. on the 28th. And that was the last of them.
We're almost done, sir.
And you can feel free to stand.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
So that presentation is a compilation of text messages and phone calls between John O'Keefe and the defendant on January 28, 2022.
Yes, that was.
Aside from that compilation, are there other text messages and phone calls that you've reviewed between John O'Keefe and the defendant that evening, January 28, 2002, going into past midnight, January 29, 2022?
Yes, there's more text messages.
And those text messages and phone calls, are they a separate compilation from this?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, this time I'd ask us to release Trooper Guarino and recall him at a later date.
Yes. All right. There's no objection, Mr. Alessi, correct?
No objection, subject to.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Trooper. We'll see you another time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You just leave it there. Thanks.
So he'll be back again with
Is
the
this
news.
the time for me to see counsel at sidebar? Okay.
Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to introduce exhibits or clips 7 through 11.
Oh, these are from the interview. Here we go. In Karen's own words.
Thank you.
With the court's permission, could I begin with clip 7?
Yes.
When you walked out of the bar, how many drinks had you had?
I had had probably about 4, and not 4 that I completed either. I didn't drink maybe more than a few sips at the Waterfall.
And 4 drinks you felt fine to drive?
Yep.
Clip 8, please.
Okay.
And is the level of intoxication pretty high here for everybody?
It's happy.
Yeah.
It's
You'd had a lot to drink, right?
I wouldn't say I'd have like a normal amount. Let's say like a vodka tonic every 40 minutes.
Okay. And so are you feeling like buzzed? And I'm not judging, I'm just trying to get a
Yeah,
sense.
buzzed.
Yeah.
Clip 9, please.
The final count of my alcohol intakes, probably about 5 or 6 or 4. The drinks that they were pouring me at McCarthy's, which is where I consumed most of the alcohol, was the weakest vodka tonic. It tasted just like old soda water with lime. Not that I need it to be a martini, but it might have had a splash of vodka in it. So I said, John, this drink tastes like it has no vodka in it. He said, just get a shot and mix it yourself. So each drink was being counted as a double. So I would get a vodka tonic and then I would pour a shot into it. So that would count as 2. Frankly, it just felt like a regular cocktail. It was just a really weak pour. So I asked for a shot. So for my taste, it just tasted like that's the normal strength of what a drink should be. So I had maybe 2 or 3 that are being counted as 4 and 6. And I don't know. I felt fine. I felt like I was buzzed. And then there was one drink, the last one that was given to me, which I would have counted as 3, but they're counting as my 6th cocktail. The guys that we were with brought around the shots, and they gave me one that I didn't drink, but I poured it in my drink. So that's now my 5th and 6th drinks, with the 7th, which is a shot that all the men did, and I poured it. So that one glass that I'm holding, that I go into the Waterfall with, has 3 drinks in it, a vodka tonic and 2 shots. And which is why John said to me, you're not leaving that drink here, like you haven't touched it and just poured a bunch of vodka. He's like, just take it with you, which is something he always did. So then I go into Waterfall and I put that drink down and I socialize most of the time. So that would have been my 5th, 6th, and 7th drinks. Then John orders me a drink at the Waterfall that I don't drink, that he takes with him. And then there was a round of shots that Chris Howard bought that I did take. So that would have been the night. But I did not consume 9 vodka martinis or take 9 shots, depending on how you count it. And the last 2 drinks I didn't touch.
Clip 10, please.
I mean, I'm not as clear as I would be if I hadn't been drinking. I mean, I had drank, so, and that led me to question, like, could I have hit him? Did I run over his foot or hit him in the knee? Did I incapacitate him? I mean, I always drive with my music blasting ever since I was 16. And I know when John got out of the car to go into Fairview, I know my car was blasting because when I got in it the next morning to go look for him, I had to immediately turn it down. And I don't know, it's stormy. I have had a few cocktails. I didn't black out, but I wasn't as lucid as I would have been if I had gone to bed at 9 and drank a tea. But so I was fuzzier than I would have been if I had had no alcohol.
Clip 11, please.
How did you feel after that many drinks? When you got in the car, did you feel like you could drive? And did you feel how
I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway. I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway at 12:15 on January 29th. I mean, it was quiet. The roads were very quiet. You can see it on the videos. And I was going, when I've had a few drinks and I drive, I always drive extra slow. So I know my alerts aren't as sharp as they should be. But I shouldn't have been driving. But I don't think I was driving. I know I wasn't driving recklessly. I mean, I've got plenty of video of myself driving all over the place. I put my car in John's garage, which is incredibly narrow, and I have a very oversized SUV. You see me. There's a video of me driving through the intersection when we leave Waterfall to go to Brian Albert's, and I was always taught by my father, even when you have a green light, you always should tap the brake. You don't know who's going to run red. And I see me doing that multiple times between 12 and 1 and 5 and 6 a.m. So I know I was driving safely, not as safely or as alert as I would be if I had no alcohol. But I was not driving recklessly by any measure.
Thank you. Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
Okay, so they're approaching. It's just those clips about, drinking, in what she was saying about it first, about, the number of drinks. It will come into testimony later how high her alcohol, what they believe her alcohol level could have been. Yes. Wow. I don't know. Alcohol plays a lot here. They were all drinking. It does seem like they did do this regularly, like to go out, with the friend group and all. Not so unusual. But it does look like they were using it to manage some stress. At least John O'Keefe was, at the time. And they are back. I can imagine.
All right, jurors, there was some confusion with counsel regarding witnesses. So those are the witnesses for today. So we're done for today. Counsel assures me that won't happen again. But more importantly, we're on track. We're on schedule, not going for the rest of the day. Won't interfere with our schedule at all. It looks like it's, I can't tell with all the curtains here, but it looks like it's a beautiful day. You'll have a nice afternoon. Tomorrow we'll be going on a view. So for that, we're comfortable clothes. We'll be walking around a little bit. We'll be going by bus, and I'll have more instructions for you tomorrow morning. But please follow those instructions. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Remember, tomorrow's a holiday.
All rise for the court, please.
Okay.
The notebooks and follow me.
All right, just because there's no witnesses doesn't mean she's not going to come back and address the attorney. So I'm going to leave this up for a minute or two. That kind of throws everything off because I thought we had a half day of testimony tomorrow. But they are going to do the view, which was originally scheduled. I don't know if that means we still will have witnesses either in the morning or the afternoon. So I'm waiting to hear from Judge Cannone. And here she comes. She better tell us. Please tell us, Judge Cannone, what the heck is going on for Friday and Monday?
Jury is exiting the courtroom.
All right. Mr. Brennan, have you had an opportunity to think about whether experts should be permitted to either be present or watch
the proceeding. And I also want to know, are you expecting to put on any expert testimony tomorrow?
Dr. Fowler will testify tomorrow. I think that should be considered expert testimony. He provides the procedures and protocol for the testing of blood serum.
Okay.
So I think he's technically considered an expert, although one of the briefer ones.
All right. Does the defense want an expert to be able to watch that? All right. So I know we've had a lot going on this morning. Do you want to address this tomorrow? When do you want to address whether experts should be present?
I can address it tomorrow morning. I can
All
consider
right.
it.
We'll do that. And have you talked about who you all mean? Like, do you all know who you want to have exempt from the sequestration order?
We haven't got to that detail. I'm sure they have in mind who they want. I haven't gotten to that point yet.
All
We
right.
can have that discussion so that we can present tomorrow what my position is and address the court on the witnesses.
Sure, we can do that. And then I know you said that you've got an agreement that you'll provide witnesses or a list of witnesses in advance to defense counsel, and I'm sure you'll provide witnesses in advance to Mr. Brennan. Include me on that, please. I just like to know
Very
who's
well.
coming up the next day because I have to prepare as well.
Happy to. Thank you.
Okay? All right, so we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you again.
All right.
Okay, so that is that. Yes, they're going on a field trip tomorrow. It sounds like we will have half a day of testimony. She was advising them how to dress because they'll leave from the courthouse. They are going by where the house was. They're going by McCarthy's. They're going by the Waterfall. They're going by the areas that are discussed in the testimonies and in the evidence that gets put in. Okay. Puff Bunny said a question, and I know a lot of you can answer this. How did Karen know of John being found so quickly in the morning? There's not really a good answer for that. It's a good question because that is what the Commonwealth is putting forward, especially in Kerry Roberts' testimony from day 2 the other day. She said that they were driving around. It's in the snow. Her and Jen McCabe and Karen, and they get up to where like the house is. They can't see anything, but she jumps out of the car and goes straight to a mound in the snow that is the body. And also the testimony that at 5 a.m. in the morning, she called Carrie, and the first thing she said is Johnny's dead. She said, John's dead. Carrie, John's dead. Okay. And then hung up. And then there was some confusion on whether she called her back and she answered, or whether she called her back, she didn't answer, and then Karen called her back. But in the second conversation, she said he didn't come home. I think he might have been hit with a plow or something. Like, it's not like him. The kids would have been alone, which is true, because you could see from the text messages that John O'Keefe was not planning. He was planning that Karen would be there for the weekend like usual, but Karen was not planning on being there for the weekend because they were fighting about the kids and she didn't want to be around the kids. She didn't want the 4 of them playing like, she didn't want to be judged for how she was, what she said, like her actions with the kids. Apparently, giving them donuts and getting them whatever they want or whatever. John was trying to act like a parent, and Karen was acting like everybody's favorite aunt and give you whatever they want. And he was looking for a little more support. So, I mean, it's easy to judge them, the text messages and the attitude after the fact. We weren't in the relationship. But, raising kids, and as a parent, if you have your partner there, whether you're married or not, and they're involved with the kids, you want to know you're on the same team. You want to know that you have the same idea about how things should be done. And I think that's the way John was approaching it, from what I can read in what is being told about how he was doing it. We don't know for sure because we're not hearing from him. But then Karen's reaction is, I'm being judged. And she's right. She is. If you're in a relationship with someone with kids, you are being judged by how you deal with those kids. That's a fact. If you don't want to be, if you're not up to the challenge, you don't get to rewrite the rules. Sorry, not sorry. That's just the way it is. Sounded like her instructions to the jury were that they'd be done for it. Like, we're not going to have an afternoon stream. I'm going to have to cancel that one. But they are going to go for a viewing. That was a defense request. That was part of the hearings a couple of months ago, I believe. And the jury is going to just go about some of the locations. Now, the problem is it's not winter, so they're not going to see any of the conditions, but they want to see the roads that drove. And in a way, it is actually relevant because of the timeline is so close. Because the Commonwealth is saying, like, the traveling from the waterfall, to the house, uh, 34 Fairfield, which is the location in the lawn where the body was, John O'Keefe's body was found. The incident of being parked in front of that house and where it may have happened. And then her going back to where she lives. Now, I don't know if they're going back to her house too, so that they can see the route, because there's a timing issue there. And also there's going to be further in the trial, we do believe, if it goes along with the first trial and all that's gone along in the documents that have been filed in regards to testimony and evidence that's getting admitted, it does believe that the new accident scene reports in the GPS black box data from the Lexus will be able to confirm a time frame when she went back out looking. And there has been some speculation that she did go out on her own before contacting Carrie, or that on her way to meet Carrie, because she said that she was already, in movement, that she had gone by Fairfield again, and they're going to track that route. I don't know if they're actually going to go that whole route or not, to her house. But the timing of that matters, because the defense is going to say there was no time to do that. That's absolutely ridiculous. What if she did do that and she did go that way? Then that's why she knows the body's there. And why didn't she just call Carrie right away? And why isn't she saying so if she already knew? So there's two ways she could know. She could remember from backing up and hitting him and thinking, well, that's good possibility. That's where he is. If she, after a few hours of sobering up, or she gets the memory of the incident, it could be that way. Or it could be from a drive-by prior, after, in the morning. So hard to answer that one, Puff Bunnies, but that's what everybody's saying. Who found John? The three of them in the car pulled up. Karen Reed is the first one after the supposed incident sometime after midnight to actually discover the body in the snow. And then the other girls join her over there, and 911 is called, and then all the first responders show up. So when you say who discovered, Karen Reed, while she was with Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe in the car, after she had already called Kerry Roberts to help go look for John, explaining what was going on. And then they got Jen McCabe and they started looking. Do we get to see the field trip? Teresa says, no, we do not. I do not believe that we can. And there was a whole big discussion because Karen Reed wants to be there. And they can't have her anywhere near the jury. So they have to have multiple vehicles, that they had to arrange this whole protocol. No one is supposed to talk to the jury or have anything to do with the jury. Not, so it's difficult to arrange this. But she does have a right to be everywhere they go. So it's a whole thing. I doubt camera crews are coming. We may see bits and pieces of it. I can put together whatever happens in social media in regards of it, so you guys can watch it later. But I don't plan to follow them around if they do it. It's not a normal thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think that we're going to get to see. You remember in the Murdaugh trial, some of you that were following me, we didn't get to see that one either. Although the press did have plenty of pictures and film of it from a distance, what they saw, and did a lot of went over the route and everything. And if anybody puts anything out like that, I will definitely gather it up for you guys. So, yeah, I think she did know, Puff Bunnies, and that's what sticks out to me. That's why, I go back and forth on intent here. I really do not think even with them fighting, I do think she was angry. I do think that night she was angry. She was frustrated. She sees that their relationship is not in a good place. She's losing him. She doesn't want to. She wants to be the one. Okay. It's the kids that are interfering. She doesn't know how she feels about that. I mean, she's 40 some years old and she doesn't have children. And it's probably not easy to come from his perspective on things. And I get that. But she also seems to be a bit controlling and manipulative. And I could see that she'd be angry and frustrated and have some resentment. And as much as they appeared lovey-dovey, now they're fueled with alcohol. Now they're going to a house of his friends and everything where people that she gets along with and doesn't get along with, like Jen McCabe. Apparently she doesn't like her at all from what she said, but she even said nasty stuff about Carrie Roberts. Like, these were John's friends. Okay. There's going to be a lot of people there. You hear her saying things about his friends even about his friend Mike. Things are going bad. So, like, if she was reactionary and she backed up to talk to him, because remember, he got out of the car, statements are he got out of the car and he took her drink along with his drink when he got out of the car. He's thinking she's coming in with him. She sends him in to the place and she tells him to go in and make sure that they're really welcome. Like, she's just playing this, I don't know if they want me there. Your friends don't want me there. Like, like what we saw in the text message, all that. So he takes both drinks. He walks around to the back of the car. Perhaps when she noticed that he took her drink, she got pissed that she was backing up to get it. I don't know. But I don't think there was intent there to kill him. Is there intent to be mad and show him and yell at him and be a complaining psycho babe chick that she was? Absolutely. She wasn't going to change any of that. But that doesn't make you a murderer. I really think manslaughter was the right charge. But I do think covering up the crime kind of escalates it because now she's breaking more laws. If she just would have taken some accountability, if she hit him. Now that's allegedly now because we don't know for sure that she did yet. We got to hear the rest of the testimony. I think it's more than likely that she did from what we already know, but we have to see what comes in because, the jury hasn't heard any of that yet. She would have smacked him for not letting her spend the night. You know what? Exactly. But he wanted her there for the weekend. Like, he didn't want her driving all over, and he didn't want her snowed in there with the possibility of not having hot water. But she don't want to be around the kids. Yeah, I get it. I agree, Teresa. It does sound like an accident. But like you said, if she was trying to cover up some stuff, it makes it look very fishy. Exactly. So it's almost like she made it worse, like so much worse. And there's so much more that happened after that makes it even worse. I don't really think the social media tour she did is helping her at all now. I think hindsight is perfect vision and they might have some regrets there. But being the defendant and thinking you're falsely accused that everybody's coming at you and making things worse and like, why, I can understand her wanting to protect herself and get her side of the story out there without having to take the stand and having to tell 100% the truth. Just remember, she can go out on social media and do all the interviews she wants. So she's not liable. She doesn't swear in. She's not sworn to tell the truth. It's not like being on the witness stand. She cannot have perjury charges pressed against her. She can say whatever she wants. It's just going to look bad. And by, this is where Hank Brennan bringing in the motive, also bringing in the attack of consciousness of guilt, which is a term in legal that just means that actions of the defendant just made them look really guilty. Now, you can't use that as the only reason to convict. It's a contributing factor, so to speak. You got to give it the right weight, and the jury will receive instruction on that. But it helps them add it all up together. It applies some of the missing pieces to it, the actions that happened afterwards. Because I'm sure they'd have the same questions we do. Well, how can you prove intent? I want to know about the ex-boyfriend's puff buddies. Can you imagine? Nobody's come forward with stories. Oh, and the former employers. Well, she was let go of her teaching job, her instructor job at the college. Yeah. Yes, they were his sister's kids, and he was their guardian after his sister and brother-in-law died. Yep. He stood up. You know, he loves his family. And for a single man at his age, that was a huge commitment. And we heard Kerry Roberts testify that in the beginning he needed lots of help. He didn't know what he was doing, but he takes that commitment seriously. All right. You caught me. Claire, people telling truth on the socials. What a novel idea. Yeah, I know that sounds ridiculous. Like foolish me expecting people to do the right thing. Really? Yeah. No, for all accounts, John O'Keefe sounded like a good guy. I mean, he was a police officer, and that's kind of contributing to the greater good. I give him great marks there for that. Like, yay, wonderful human being. He was very family oriented. When his sister goes see, he was very close to his brother and his sister and his parents. As you can see, he still is, or was rather, in all of the testimonies and all of the images that we see before. When his sister got sick, you know, he was helping out. His sister died. He was helping out his brother-in-law, and then his brother-in-law passed also. And he stepped up, you know. His younger brother, Paul, was married and had children, was a little bit farther away from the parents. It wasn't as easy to get the help, everybody working together. John did it. He would actually moved into their house so they didn't disrupt the children. Yeah, it really does. Now, it sounds like he's, you know, a flawed human like we all are. He gets angry. He does things. He wants things his way, you know. But I do think even in the argument text back and forth, I see him trying to smooth things over, but not giving in totally. I see that they, you know, he says, you know, we've been fighting like this on and off. I don't recover as well as you. This is starting to be too much. That's the vibe I get. Like he's at the point where, is this really worth it? Now, if she's going to start this about the kids, like I'm done. I really do see that there. I think they've been fighting on and off about his friendships with women. Because of the children, he had strong friendships with several women in the community because they had kids also. You heard testimony from Kerry Roberts about how everybody was shuffling each other's kids around, how they all helped each other out, how they were calling each other, like when they went to this place or that place, do you need anything? John O'Keefe depended on a lot of his friends for this. He's a working man. He doesn't have children of his own. It's not like he's got a lot of practice at this. And everybody was helping. And he had some strong friendships with females. And I think just on that little bit of text messages there, I think Karen might have had an issue with some of that. She does not look like she does appear to be someone who needs to be number one all the time. And, you know, many of us do in our personal relationships. I mean, don't we want to feel from our partner that we're the above everything else, right? You know, it's a little bit of give and take. I think her view on it was a little obsessive, you know. I think that, you know, the situation was just not something she was really getting comfortable with. And they've been together a while now, and it's getting to the point where you have to decide, is this it or isn't it? Like, how much time am I going to give this if it's not working out? We're talking years here, right? Human centrist thinking. Are you side-eyeing me? Yeah. Yeah, Carrie was his prom date. Yeah, I guess like they, you know, they've known each other for a long time. There are pictures of them from high school together. Her with the family. I mean, they were pretty well, you know. I think it was a couple of years they got together. It was around COVID. They used to date years and years ago, and then they hooked back up when everybody was kind of having to stay away from everybody. You know, it does sound like she was, only because of the catty remarks that she made it does sound like she was jealous of quite a few people in John's life. Just the catty remarks that she was making to complete strangers. I mean, granted, she was under stress the morning of finding the body and the alleged incident. Like, I get that. And she's like coming off being really, really drunk. She may even still be somewhat drunk. She's having not a good moment. But she is, even at that time, to strangers, bad mouthing people. Like the paramedic said, the Carrie Roberts had just got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to come help you look for John, but she's here bad mouthing her, like, yeah, not so good, and like we said, she just doesn't seem to have a boundary there. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry about the late start, guys, but I'm glad we got all caught up, and we're definitely going to be together tomorrow morning. They're going to talk about what they were talking about for that mini hearing they're going to do in the beginning is Hank Williams for the Commonwealth had filed a motion that experts should, whether or not people that are testifying should be in the courtroom while others are testifying, like should they hear the proceedings. And there were some exclusions for family, like Peggy O'Keefe and William Reed, who are both on the list. They're both family members, and they were allowed. And there was the exception of Turtle Boy made because he's actually, if he did take the stand, he's just going to plead the fifth anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But when it came to expert witnesses, it's very common that experts listen to the other experts' testimony. And that was going back and forth. And for some reason, like he was like hemming and hawing on whether experts should be allowed. So that's why she brought that up again. And so the Commonwealth will argue pro or con for it in the morning. It may not even be an issue because there will be an expert witness coming forward tomorrow in regards to what they feel Karen's blood alcohol may have been at the time of the incident, because they didn't get her blood until many, many, many hours later. And so they have to do the kind of testing where they can extrapolate the what ifs and could be's, which is always kind of uncomfortable when it comes to scientific data, right? So there's plenty to push back on with expert witnesses. So there'll be two. Who was Turtle Boy again? He is a YouTuber that streamed on the Karen Reed trial, who brought it out to the attention of the media and everybody, the supposed conspiracy against Karen Reed, that she was being wrongly accused and being set up, here comes my snark, by the whole town of Canton. Every personal friend, every law enforcement officer, every firefighter, first responder. Yes, it's a huge conspiracy that she's being persecuted. Mm-hmm. And he had a relationship with the defense and Karen Reed that's been proven. And he's facing his own charges for witness intimidation in this case. He often puts up the names of people, attacks them personally, the witnesses in this case, in defense of Karen Reed. There's been slips of grand jury testimony who those witnesses were before we were supposed to know. There's a lot of inappropriate, what I would say are inappropriate. Please, like, don't come from me, YouTube. I'm not trying to, make a big case here about it, but it's not my way. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, and I don't condone it. I think it's a violation of the process. I think it makes more problems than good for actually the dealing of justice in a case, whether pro or con. I think lines were overstepped. I think people's personal lives were invaded, and just the way people are treating each other in regards on the socials about this case, pro or con, is rather distasteful either way. I'm not perfect. I could be, I can be a little petty myself in some of my comments and snarky, and I own it, but it's not my intent to go out there and hurt anyone about it or to cause great damage. And my goal is always to just watch the justice system doing what the justice system needs to do, and not interfere. And let's see. if I had to guess, this partly comes from Deb Heard, since it sounds like Karen Reed isn't so different from Amber Heard. Well, I would agree with that, especially in the ego. She might have presented herself as a supportive partner who could offer a lot to his kids at the beginning. And I said that because I don't think John O'Keefe would get involved with anyone who wasn't supportive of that relationship. And it seems like that's where the contentious part of the argument they had in the morning, which we didn't hear, they're just referring to it. I think it had to do with wishes not being his wishes for how he would like things not being honored in the relationship. I think she's starting to show more of her true colors and how she thinks things should be. And I really can't see him getting involved with anybody who wasn't on page with him in the beginning, because it just would make things difficult. And wasn't his life kind of difficult as it was? He had a tight schedule, he needs help with stuff. She did spend a lot of time with the kids. In all of the pictures of hers with the kids, she's smiling. She has gone to games. She has done stuff. She was helping him get them to appointments and things like that. There was testimony in the first trial about that I heard, and it's all over the socials about it. I mean, from what I've seen. It's not like she was always trying to drag him away from the kids or anything like that. I mean, they vacation together and everything. But like I said, they're coming to the point where it's that point in the relationship where you have to decide, like, if you're both on the same page about everything and whether this is something worth pursuing for a forever kind of thing, or if you have already put in a lot of time and it's just not moving where you want, and it's time to really address it. And, relationships get there, that's it. Okay. Let me just see what Teresa had made a comment. If I was the jury, I would be questioning how she knew he was dead at 5 a.m. when she called Carrie. Me too. But I also wonder if that was just like her thoughts of, like, he's not home yet, he must be dead. Like, just like an excited utterance, I guess, would be it. And I would expect the defense to actually go at that. But they didn't. They didn't say a word about it. I'm not so sure whether she actually knew that at the time. I think she suspected it at the time, because I don't think after she backed up and hit him, and because she has said to her father at the hospital, and this hasn't come in yet, this was from the first trial, that she had said, I had suspected I hit something, but I wasn't sure. But never has it been that she went back, got out of the car, and went and saw him lying there and then just decided to leave him. I seriously doubt that happened. So there's no way she literally knew he was dead, unless she had already drove by the house or where he was, saw him there covered with snow, and then called Carrie. And I think that's what we're going to find out when we learn about the black box data from the Lexus in the crime scene reconstruction, when they lay out the timeline of how the phones moved, her phone and his phone, and the GPS from the vehicle. We will find out, because she did drive to Carrie's, and then they all got in a vehicle, and she got into a vehicle, and then Carrie drove because she was obviously still feeling the effects of being out and being upset and shouldn't be driving. I know it's hard to see when we're seeing the worst case. We're seeing the worst version of Karen Reed right now. She's on trial for murder. It's been a couple of years. She's been all over the socials. She's been all over the media. We're seeing the worst version of her. So we can't really judge what it is that John O'Keefe saw in her. She was a professional woman with a good career. She could be considered beautiful. I think she's petite, in good shape, and she dresses really well. She has a magnificent smile, a magnificent smile. Okay, we're seeing the worst of her right now. And I don't think that's the version that John O'Keefe was in a relationship with in the beginning. I mean, it just stands to reason, right? But we're never going to know. We're never going to know, you know. I mean, we're seeing worst case scenario. You can't get under more stress than being on trial for murder, especially if someone you were that close with. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let me just check for more questions, and then I think we're going to wrap this up until tomorrow. Was she crying when she found out? She was hysterical at the scene. Hysterical. You could see it in her actions. You can hear it. You can hear it. There's going to play some rather upsetting, nasty phone calls, messages left on his phone. We haven't heard everything yet, Puff Bunnies. Like, you're going to need to buckle up. Some of the evidence is going to make you feel worse about her. But some of it is not. You know what I mean? If she, you see, that's why it's murder, Teresa, because they're saying if she knew he was there, if she knew she hit him, and she didn't call 911, that escalated the charge from manslaughter. So you're spot on there. You could see why the prosecution, looking at the case, may not have been just like willing to just say, okay. I mean, they did charge her with manslaughter at first, you know. And then the charges escalated after that, the more they discovered. Yeah, she was crying. She was crying a lot. That's why she got a Section 12 at the scene, because she was hysterical. The parents, I think it was either the mother or the father of Karen Reed had called the talk to somebody in charge of the scene, that they were talking to her on the phone and she didn't sound right. They were worried and concerned for her that she might do something because she was making statements. So they Section 12'd her. She was hysterical. Kerry Roberts said she was frantic and hysterical from that very first phone call. Everybody who dealt with her said she was pretty much very emotional, you know. Hi, Maggie. How you doing? Let me see with that. You know, I mean, we're really glad to have you here too, Maggie. You know, but yeah, that was it, Teresa. She was crying, but since that day, since being charged, whenever anybody brings up his name, there is not anything. And I can't really judge her on that. I don't know how I would feel. It's a little too personal, isn't it? Somebody that close to you and they're not here and now you're charged for their murder. Personally, the way I feel about socials, you know, this is going to sound really weird because I'm a YouTuber. Like, of course, I'm out here, right? And I choose to be out here. But there are things that I just feel people don't have a right to know. And my private life, my partnerships and things, that's part of it. And so I can understand why she doesn't want to show emotion about how she might really feel about that situation. And I don't want to judge her too harshly for not breaking down in tears every time he gets mentioned. She's on trial for murder. And for her, it's a life or death kind of thing. It's not unusual for her to be focused on herself about that and not so much the loss. What she does privately, how she mourns privately, you know, I'm going to have to give her that. That's her business. But it does look odd. And I will admit that a lot of people are judging her on it. A lot of people are judging on her. And it's probably easier to judge her on it based on all the information than it is to sit here like I am and going, I'm going to have to give her a little grace because we don't know, you know. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Teresa. Kerry Roberts did testify yesterday that the mother said, please bring her back to the house. Like she wasn't acting right. They were all concerned about how she was acting. And the mother literally said, don't let her have her purse because there are meds in there. And she didn't want her to take them, like take her purse away from her. They were concerned on how she was talking. Oh, she seemed really distraught. You're right, Couch. It has been a few years and people have time to deal with things. And the cameras have been in her face the whole time. and so she just may not, it may be a conscious choice not to give it to them. It may also just be that she's like so over it. Like, she did what she had to do in private. Right now, this is even a worse facial expression in the first trial from what I saw. She's not even putting on a nice face for the jury right now. Yesterday, she looked sedated to me. She looked overly, a little disconnected. Today, she still looks disconnected, but she also looks like really annoyed and embarrassed. But then again, look at all the private stuff they're putting up there about her. That's her face and her words. And she knows the jury's judging her on it. Like, it has to be the most uncomfortable position to be in. I mean, just think about that. Like, you got 12 people staring at you and judging every little thing you said and did in the past. And now they're looking at you right there at the table and judging you on it. It's pretty hard. What is she supposed to do? Smile at them? If she did smile at them, they'd be judging her for that too. Like, I don't even know how she keeps her composure, to tell you the truth. She does not come across sympathetic or empathetic. She does not come across like she feels for anyone else. And she does not come across, she has such an attitude when you hear her talk and you watch her facial expressions, that she doesn't come across sympathetic. Like, I don't even want to feel sorry for her, but I do tend to find myself sticking up for her because people don't necessarily put themselves in her shoes. Like, what would it be like? I'm not saying she's doing the right thing. I'm not condoning her behavior. I'm just saying, gosh, it's got to be so darn difficult, in the long run. Yeah, I would imagine if it was myself also, Puff Bunny says, I would still feel sad about the whole thing. I definitely would too. I can't imagine being with somebody for a few years and something like that happens, whether I'm involved or not, and just not being able to react. I don't know if I could control myself from not reacting. I have experience with grief, and I can tell you it hits you when you don't expect it. Like, you can't, it's something I myself am not able to control. You're fine for days and weeks and months at a time. It's some stupid thing will happen in a wham. It's like no time has passed at all. Exactly, So on that, I think I'm going to hit out, and we'll continue this tomorrow. If you guys have more questions or stuff you want to bring up for the breaks or during the lunch or anything like that, especially if you have stuff you need researched or questions, hit the back of the videos. Not only does it help the algorithm, but it lets me know how I can assist you in finding the information and making these chats more enjoyable for all of you and for myself. So thank you for being here. And I will see you again tomorrow. And let's keep our fingers crossed that I actually get here on time, at least one day this week. Okay? Thanks, guys. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow. And don't forget, like, share, and comment. Whether you're here in the chat or you're listening later on YouTube, I do want to hear from you. That comment section is for you. So talk to you all later.